I love the fact that you use the term stepping into the world, because it is such a well-built, well-articulated world. And just the opportunity to step into this franchise that has dinosaurs and things to run from and run to and to be afraid and be on an adventure together. I felt like the nature of how the story was arced out and written, it just felt like it was gonna be really good.
I loved working with him, and he's I think you probably have met him, he's just very quiet, kind of quite unassuming. He doesn't sort of shout or boast or show off, and yet you see what's inside his mind. And it's beyond, there's no limits to his imagination. So I was thrilled because there's only so much of it we actually saw when we were there. And that was great. But then realizing that there's another, at least half as much again, that he was conceiving of. It was like watching a painter where you sort of see a few lines and you're like, what's that? And then suddenly you realize, oh my word, now it's this. And then they start shading, and it's really, really deft and detailed, and as I said, kind of limitless. There's something, a bit untrustworthy about him based on what he does. You can I think you can find a lot out about any human by what they do rather than what they say they do. And so his actions, I think, spoke.
I think the really relishing in some of the softer moments, I think is sort of the key to playing that character, because it's written in a way where you have to step up to the ambitious moments in the script, the sort of more aggressive, confronting, action-driven moments are there for you to step up to. I think you have to be very conscious of how to slow down and how to soften at times, so that there's some counterbalancing to how forward and sort of masculine he can be.
This sort of an adventure has got plenty of challenges. If your cast, your colleagues, were not as superb, supportive, and talented as these guys were, it would be really very, very tough. To look to your left and right and just see the best of the best makes you bring your A game. I think it makes you feel safe enough to take risks. And you form this kind of collective, because not only were we in these quite grueling environments, but most of the film we were imagining. And that's an interesting challenge. It's part of our job, but it is a challenging part of the job, and it's enormously helped by having Scarlett and Jonathan and Mahershala. I think that Jurassic Park as a franchise is endlessly fascinating because of our endless fascination with dinosaurs. It is a species we know existed, and we I was going to say we cohabited with them. We did not do that, but we have this kind of knowledge of them, but it's completely theoretical. So to feel a filmmaker bring them to life as good as Spielberg or Gareth is sort of like going back in time and a magic trick all rolled into one. So it's not an imaginary monster like, I don't know, King Kong, nor is it a sort of ghost going bump in the night. It's a natural thing. It's a completely beautiful natural thing, an animal that kind of ruled the earth. And then it's obviously the thing that Crichton was writing about, the meeting of science and nature, where man's meddling in the natural world inevitably has consequences that you can't foretell. And I feel like that is just a great recipe for a great movie. And so I'm thrilled that it's been so popular and continues to be.
Kind of an unfathomable experience. It doesn't really feel real at all, but we watched the movie and we were in it, so it was very real. Just like what a legendary franchise, and just kind of the serendipity of it all. Like, we all got along so well, and we got along with the rest of the cast, and Gareth and David obviously work magic, so.
Yeah, it's still unreal to me that I'm doing all of this, and being here right now is something I've never done before. So it's exciting, and it's still a pinch me moment.
I will also add to that. I think that it is, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, being able to be a small part in such a incredibly, massively loved and known franchise. It's something that not a lot of people get to say, especially not, a few young people like us get to say. So it's, it's such an amazing opportunity, and just beyond blessed, honestly, just feeling blessed and grateful that we get to, do this journey, and we got to do it together, and now we get the world to just process it, and we get everyone else to see the journey that we went on. It's incredible. I mean, to be able to, first of all, to be able to have the advantage of shooting on 35 millimeter is something that not a lot of people also get to do, especially at this grand of scale as well. And that's just something that Gareth wanted from day one. He knew that he wanted to make it gritty and raw, to pay just even more of an ode to the original. And so I think truly in this film, like, the fact that we are in these real locations and everything you're seeing is real besides the dinosaurs, and it's all caught on film. So it's like you're there. It's like it's the most like real and grounding, and that's what's so amazing about the original Jurassic, is the fact that it is on film. It was shot in Hawaii, and you get that sense of like, I'm there and I'm with them. And that's what I feel also you get in this movie. It's just that sense of like realism and like security that, you haven't seen in a while.
Totally.
I'd say she makes an amazing pet. I have 2 dogs myself, and so she reminds me of them a lot. And she's so cute. We were just outside petting her, and she just snuggles up on you. And it makes your heart like feel warm, because she's just so cute, and you just want to always be with her.
She's really sweet.
Yeah.
It's really big for me. It's very overwhelming, because for me, the first, the Jurassic Park, Spielberg, it really, I think a whole generation, it marked a whole generation, but me personally, it really opened a door of a world that I wanted to be in. Like, I saw that, I'm like, and it was so far away. I come from Mexico, it was like impossible, but there was these kids watching that. I'm like, I want to be in that world, So to now be part of that, imagine, it's really big. Honestly, it's so helpful, and it's one of the the cool things about this career, it's that it has taken me places that I've never imagined I would visit, And that's one, and the other is that I'm really grateful for it, because it really helps you as an actor to be in the atmosphere, in the actual location where you have all these elements that you're really suffering or playing with or reacting to. The heat is real heat, and the mosquitoes and the animals. We're sitting, first scene that we did, it was a scene right in the middle of the jungle with the whole family, and in Thailand it's clear, and then all of a sudden it pours rain, and we had nowhere to hide, and we were sitting in the, we're on the set, and spiders, we kept jumping and looking like, I don't know, it just brings your instincts, so that helps a lot. So as an actor, sometimes you have to use the green screen, and that's fine, but I really appreciate when they do, and it looks better, Thailand, the scenery is just incredible. It is really incredible. So it was really cool. Yeah. Oh, so many. I think he's the right director to do something like that. Before getting the movie, I watched The Creator, the movie he did prior to this one, and that brought me to see his other films. Godzilla and Rogue One and all this, and he just has this. Not a lot of directors, there are very few that can do the science fiction thing and all that, but never lose the human touch, the heart of the humans, and I think he does this, in this movie he does it perfectly. I think one of the things that this movie works so well is because it has a lot of heart, this family you see and you're rooting for. And the story of Scarlett and Mahershala, it has a lot of heart, and I think he blends and balances that very well. All the science fiction stuff and monsters or dinosaurs, whatever, with the human connection, and so he's incredible, and he's just, he knows his craft so well, and his visuals are insane too. We've talked a lot of the cast about it, and I think we owe it to Scarlett because she's such a great leader. She was the one that right away, you know, opening a chat and, guys, I don't know you, but we're gonna go to this trip to go see this island. Everybody comes. I don't want to know for an answer. So, you know, she really brought everyone together, and she was doing these dinners every weekend after shooting, and so, you know, I guess number one on the call list, on the cheat list, which is Scarlett, really marks the pace of how things are gonna go, you know? And her energy is incredible. So I think we owe it to her, but everyone is so great. I mean, Mahershala, I've been watching that guy and, you know, following him, and now to be working with him is insane. And, you know, with Rupert, everyone's just incredible. I mean, Adrina, I was very nervous to, you know, to work with kids is, you know, it can go both ways. Sometimes they can get into their head very well, or they can just go away very easily because of the imagination they have that is very easy for them to access it. And she's one of those pure talent. Right away, you know, it's like, it was so easy to act like as a father to protect, because to see her, the fear in her, the real fear in her face, you know, it was like, you know, it was easier to just be in the moment and in the situation.
I basically got into film school. I thought that would be the way into filmmaking because you don't know what else to do. So I got a place in film school, and then the summer I went was the summer Jurassic Park came out in the cinema, and it changed everything. And it was clear that computer was going to be part of filmmaking from now on. So I bought a computer, I learned how to do dinosaurs in my bedroom and things, and then ended up getting sidetracked massively for 15 years in a career doing visual effects. I thought, oh no, I've wasted my life, kind of thing. And then it turns out, having that skill set, it used to be like, you know, directors would come in from, everyone's on a different path through the film industry. Some people pick the camera, you know, some people pick writing, some people are editing. And at some point, you know, if you're trying to become a director, it's like, which path do you pick? And I'd ended up in visual effects. And so I thought, oh no, this was a dead end. This was a stupid thing to get into. And then it turns out when you know, these giant blockbusters, understanding visual effects is a really valid skill set, you know, and really helps you. And so it turned out, I made my first film. It was actually basically an audition, a calling card. It was a monster movie set in, you know, Central America, and it was me trying to like show I could do something a little bit like Jurassic Park and that. I never expected in my life that would eventually lead to being, you know, we just had the premiere for the movie, and it's a very, very surreal thing. Understanding what's really hard in the computer and really easy, and what's really hard in filming on production and really easy, and knowing those differences, I think it's really useful, because essentially what you're doing when you're making a film is saying, let's not try and film that would be a nightmare. We'll do that with computer graphics because it's a lot easier. And let's not try and do that in computer graphics because it's a nightmare. We're gonna really shoot it. And when you get that balance right, I think everything runs a lot smoother. And just knowing, like, you're shooting and you know how hard or easy it is to get rid of something or change something that's in the picture. And so you can shoot something and confidently go, it's fine, keep going, you know, and you don't have to stop and move things. And so it's weird because, you know, these big, massive movies now have a visual effects count of 1,500 shots on average. Jurassic Park, the original, had 60. But what's happening is there's just a little bit of blue screen behind a window or something like this, and so suddenly 200 more shots arrive because you've got to like put the sky in or something like this. And so we just lean on it more and more. It's just part of the tool of filmmaking, and I think that's great. You know, I feel like there's this weird thing that happens with filmmakers where, because of digital technology, you can now do anything you can imagine, right? But if you look at the timeline of cinema, Jurassic Park kind of was the beginning of real big CGI blockbusters, and I feel like it was a classic film, but most of my favorite films were before then, and when you couldn't do everything you could imagine, and so that's a great lesson as a film director, and to quote the movie, just because you could doesn't mean you should. It's like how to be restrained with these really great tools and how to like use the audience's imagination and hide things and you know, like build on those big reveals, and so it's when you've got all these amazing tools, it's very tempting to just use them all the time, and storytelling isn't really about that. Storytelling's about what you don't say or see, and how you hold back. So that's like a great lesson from like Jurassic Park original, I think.
I have been a Jurassic fan since I was, 10 and saw the first Jurassic Park in the theater. I mean, if you had asked me for the last 3 decades what movie I would want to be in, most of all, it would be a Jurassic movie. So to have it be a reality is, it's sort of mind blowing. I can't totally. When I saw the film, I lost it. I was just so, I'm so proud of it and so proud of all of the work that everybody did in the film. And it feels like it's everything that I could have ever dreamed of, but beyond that. It's just so exciting.
It's hard to put into words. Yeah. And you see we're going to watch it for the first time tomorrow with an audience. And I think it will maybe become more of a reality then, or maybe it just never will be. He's already involved in the mission in the designing of the DNA extraction device, and I think that puts him in quite an interesting dilemma ethically at the beginning of the film. The thing that clinches it, though, is obviously when they corner him and they say you've never seen a dinosaur in its natural habitat, which obviously is beyond any paleontologist's fantasy. So I think he's driven in a couple of ways. I think he cares and feels very deeply about the consequences of science and how it can be misused. And I think that's why we love, collectively, obviously the Michael Crichton novel, but the films after that. I think he's driven by wonder, or he's academically driven, but he's also got quite a stubborn sense of ethics.
You have such little real estate to hook the audience, and into the character, and take them along for the journey, so they care about the outcome of the film, or outcome of the characters' lives in the film. That you have to make it count, and I think it was important for me that the character felt like someone who was a sum of all their parts, and had like lived a life and had hopes and dreams for herself and desires, like moving forward, and that she could see like a future for herself based on like what she had experienced, That stuff is so important to know. But again, not that much time to do it in.
But I think that's something that Scarlett led everyone with, because not only in terms of just leading the film in itself and us being on set, but that sort of level of groundedness in the character. I think there's a scene with her and Mahershala that I absolutely love, where all that. Actually, even in the first scene where you see you in the car, spoiler alert, she gets in the car, but the sort of humanity and the real stakes for Zora is just so present, and I think it's down to Scarlett really for setting that tone. I think
he's such a gentle person, and like really, I think has huge admiration for performance, and he came on as a fan as well, which I think is a great place to start, because we all have deep respect for, all the source material, and we come at it from a place of like wanting to pay homage to work that we love, So it was great to be, then you're like never jaded, because you're always kind of in awe of the environment you're working in. And Gareth was really like that. He always was like, he's always in a good mood, enthusiastic, lots of like such a good energy, because he was, like, it's your dream has come true.
Yeah. Well, it's in the same way. Well, for all of us, but he's the perfect director for this movie. He's spent his whole life studying film, and he was saying that even before the opportunity arose, he had been watching Jurassic Park, just taking notes, just to understand. Obviously Spielberg is one of his huge idols, but with the work he did in Monsters, which he did before having studio backing, was doing with consumer grade equipment, is like extraordinary, and you can see the identity in that filmmaking process then all the way through. And so to give him the keys to Jurassic Park was just like a brilliant idea, and he's just nabbed it.
Yeah, he delivered it.
He delivered.